Welcome to the Mind Sensei podcast. I'm your host, Peter Taz, and I'll be taking you on a journey to the world of martial arts and introduce listeners to some of the most inspiring and knowledgeable practitioners from around the world. Whether you're a seasoned martial artist or a curious beginner, or just enjoy hearing a great story, the Mind Sensei podcast Down Under has something for everyone. So tune in, sit back, and let us take you on a journey through the world in martial arts. Okay, what's one of the hardest things you've had to do in your journey?
Martial arts training? I would say probably open this business. This is one of the biggest, I think, challenges and chances I've ever taken. I grew up very lucky in the acting industry with a career that paid my bills. I traveled the world and I had a wonderful, wonderful time. I loved my job. When that kind of started to become lesser of my priority and I was burnout, I didn't want to chase it anymore. I started working in construction. I was, like I said, bouncing, doing security work. I was working in a CPA office at one point doing bookkeeping. Um, I was executive chef for a while, cooking, and I was trying anything and everything to try to find my way. I was already in my 30s, so I was like, I'm not going to go back to college right now. So when I stumbled upon martial arts, I was like, wow, I get a chance to go and interact with humans. That's the art side. I get a chance to create from the syllabus how I want to approach it. It was just the perfect setup for me being from my background as an actor. And then in my deep passion to teach combat style arts that works and is practical and is evolving with what's going on in the world and such. That was also amazing. So when I opened though, I was, I had gotten myself in quite a bit of debt. I was in a hole. I needed answers. I needed something to bring me income. And I had no money. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I need an investor. I went to my father. I went to my uncle. I went to my friends who had money. I gave them this amazing business plan. They all were impressed by the business plan, but no, Donnie, I don't think I can do that. All I was looking for was $20,000. That would have been the build out here and a little bit to pay my rent, but I just needed that $20,000 investment. Banks wouldn't touch it because I was a martial arts school. There's no investor would touch it in banks. I went to multiple banks and they're like, it's not a business that we trust in your success. We normally wouldn't give a loan for any kind of gym unless you had some big, LA Fitness or some big, franchise behind you. I was coming without a franchise behind me. The only other option would have been to accept Charles Matera's offer and go under United Studios and pay the $60,000 for the franchise fee, $700 a month for the franchise fee, and then have to pay off their investors it's a mess. You end up in debt 20 years of your life. By the time you're retired, you're finally own the dojo. So I said, no, that's not me. I had a student, Dr. Cameron Hakmimi, one of my first black belts. He went to the bank one day with me. He sat next to me. He took $20,000 out of his account, created a business account for me. He gave me that $20,000 and that's how I started my company with a 1% interest rate out. That's all our agreement was. I got about $13,000 or so into paying him back on a regular basis. He came into my office one day, still a good friend, still one of my doctors, sits down with me and says, hey, I didn't really expect you to pay me back anything. Most people wouldn't, especially friends loaning money. He goes, I'm really impressed by that. We're good. What? Yeah, we're good. You're done. You don't owe me anything, sir. You've been a great instructor. I love what you've done here. You've created a community. You've paid me back enough. Just give me a life of free lessons and my family. Okay, done. So that first year or two though of the transitioning over to my own school, I'll never forget the 24 hours a day I was here doing a lot of the construction myself. I had one of my clients from the old school. He was a dad and I taught his son. He ended up also becoming a client as well. He was my contractor. He built this place out for probably $20,000 less than what it would have cost me. He did it for I think 15,000 or something. I got a lot of favors, but that was probably one of the most challenging, I would say in the martial arts, that was one of the most challenging things I've ever done was make the choice of gambling on the success of a martial arts school. I mean, they say that I guess there's only about a 3% success rate in regards to really making a living and not having a second job. And I'm really thankful that I've, been successful in creating this community with the support of so many amazing people, um, to be able to not have a second job, not have to worry about paying my bills for my family and doing what I love to do. But that challenge was scary, Other than that, challenging wise, martial arts probably it was my first time teaching a seminar. I think it was for the American Temple Brotherhood. Uh, Angelo talked them in. I think I was only a third degree at the time. I don't even think I was fourth, but he talked them into letting me do a 1 hour seminar. And I remember my voice. I'm like, you've been doing this your whole life, man. You're an actor. You get it together, Donnie. I couldn't get a breath. I was like, so I had Michael Miller was there. I had all these guys, Dan Mack, all these guys that I respected were there in the American Kempo community. I'm like, I'm being judged so much right now. That was back in the day where I used to take old Shaolin Kempo techniques and Kempo and American Kempoize them. Like I'd take something that no one had ever seen that I had learned previously, which I still love to do. It's a lot of fun and it's amazing what you can make practical through the science and the principles of motion.
It's a little bit like taking the Tracy techniques, put the Parker principles behind it.
It's funny you mention that, Peter, because Tracy, I always say, if you look at if you were to lay out the Kempo, um, where you have Shaolin Kempo, then you have the Chinese Kempo, which I deem as Tracy, to Chinese Kempo is Tracy Kempo, and then you have that Parker American Kempo. I kind of feel like in that order, you have Shaolin Kempo, which is very classical still to this day. It's old school classical karate and kung fu. Then you have Tracy Kempo, which is it's all derivative. Well, Ed Parker and Tracy were derivatives of each other, right? You have Tracy Kempo, which is evolved Shaolin Kempo, and then you have American Kempo, which I think is kind of evolved uh, uh, past, you know, Tracy Kempo. I know some practitioners might go, that's BS, but at least what I've experienced in regards to they stick to some very classical pieces of the art versus some of the people I know in America who's, have evolved a little bit more. And I don't know, evolve might not be the right word. They've turned it into what I look at as a little more practical.
So you didn't get to meet Frank Villari, but you met Charles Matera, right? So if we look at your lineage now, so we dive in. I like to do this. You'll find that's out about me. I like details. I'm a bit like Jack Reacher, right? Details matter. Started with Villari's system, that then progressed into Matera's, then hooking up with Mr. Tatum in 2010. Tell us about that story. Like, is Mr. Tatum still your instructor, right?
In my heart and mind, Tatum will always be like the father to me in American Kempo because he gave me my base, he gave me my foundation, he opened my mind to American Kempo, Ted Parker's American Kempo. So, I never take rank without calling Larry. I don't, even if he's not the one hosting the promotion or the test, I need his blessing just because I feel that without him, I wouldn't be here. I really wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Now maybe in another universe, I met Mr. Dye early, but before you never know the trajectory, but Mr. Tatum was the guy who created what I do today in me in regards to gifting me with the syllabus that I teach today and the science behind it. So yes, I will always consider him my mentor and look at him as my grandmaster. But I also will say this: I look at Dorian Rienzo as one of my grandmasters. I look at Mr. Dai as one of my grandmasters. I look at Muhammad as one of my there's all these different people I've been exposed to. I mean, like I said earlier in the conversation, Mr. Pick, we have talked in years, but I will give him so much credit for really influencing me and taking me in a whole different path. than what I received from Mr. Tatum. And I'm grateful for that.
He's got a different mindset. So
He's got a
he's
whole different mindset, absolutely. And in a different way of moving and power sources. Everything is very different. And I got so much from that. Guys, friends of mine like Scott Higgins, he was a mentor to me big time. I mean, he basically lived at my school when I first opened up. I mean, he was here all the time. And he gave me a lot of help when I was struggling and remembering. Every week I go and I train privately with Mr. Tatum, and I run back to the dojo and grab Jared or grab one of my like, here, let me get this out real quick, or else it's gonna be gone. And thankfully, Mr. Higgins was here to say, "Oh, you forgot that land," So, and Angelo Collado, huge influence into my training, into my art. Mr. Dye has been there. Um, I'm sure I mean, even like Damian Abbott, big influence over the years that I've been friends with him. Um, you know, David Pantano and I get along so well because he really loves to delve into blending that Krav Maga as street fighting, kind of dirty fighting. Who's the gentleman? I've never met him, but I've watched his videos and I want to give him thanks. He's a Latin guy. Skippo for the street. Uh,
uh, Frank Soto,
Soto. Yes,
yeah,
yes. Used to love
Frankie,
watching his.
Frankie baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to love watching his old episodes because I'm like, "Oh, that's a different take on this, and that looks much more like I can use for my," because my team at one point, I got them all bouncing jobs. They were all working security around Los Angeles. They would teach here in the day, and they'd go off. Even Mr. Coyato's son,
AJ.
AJ. Yeah, he would go off, and they were all working down at the brewery downtown together. My whole team. Um, I was over it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was just going to run the school. But anyway, I always want, and Mr. Soto, man, his videos not only were funny because that partner of his, Kimpo for the street, but like I said, I mention all these names, and I know I'm forgetting some, and I'll look back. Oh man, I forgot. I mean, Mr. White. We used to see each other in these martial arts, Dave Kovar business meetings where we were trying to, get ideas from other martial arts school owners and stuff. He would be there writing things down and training and taking seminars. But his whole awesome. It's amazing. Yeah, his whole actually I just redid my office, but I have I went to his life celebration, and I have a card that I keep up here. But like I said, I just redid.
I got a few of them. I started with this one because we don't have him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Do you have a 3D printer?
I do. I've got a mechanical engineering background, but also art design, web. I've got a bit of a creative mind, let's say. So I've got a few. Well, I've got a few. Um, there's Labounty,
Awesome.
um,
Very,
Kanatsa, as he passed recently.
yeah. You talk about it, man. We're talking about the mental.
Yes.
That man would sit.
I'm not
And
quite sure I can help you with that.
Mr. Knatzer would sit and he'd watch you do a form. And he might not have been able to physically get up and do the form with you, but I'll tell you what, he'll bring something out of you. He'll school you on something that you didn't know. I really enjoyed my time with him as well. But uh
He'll be missed.
anyway, what were we talking about? Yeah,
We're talking about lineage.
many.
So
You were
started at Kempo karate, right? With an M,
Kempo with an M. Yeah.
and then turned into Shaolin Kempo. Is that correct? Under the material. So you got to your third with him. Then you hooked up with Mr. Tatum, trained with him. He then recognized you as a Kempo third.
Yep.
So you're currently a sixth. So your fourth, fifth, and sixth, they've all come from Mr. Tatum. Is that right? Or
Fourth was from Angelo Collado.
okay.
Fifth was hosted by Mr. Gonzalez, certificate signed by multiple mentors and teachers.
Yeah.
And then sixth, which is up on my wall now, was hosted by Larry Tatum.
Okay. Is that Scott Gonzalez?
Scott Gonzalez, yeah. And he would be a facilitator even though I still look at him as a teacher, a mentor, he facilitated the promotion, the physical testing for both me and Anthony Anguilla. But yeah, that test was interesting because it was really neat that Scott Higgins, Professor Higgins or Master Higgins had moved to Hawaii already. So he wrote a really cool letter I've saved in a file, and Damien Abbott did the same. And they wrote these letters, a blessing basically, for my fifth degree, which was really nice support from the community. And that's something I'm really grateful for as well, even when I got my sixth. And honestly, my goal always as a practitioner was I'll make it to fifth. If I make it to fifth, I don't care.
The brick. Everyone wants the brick.
Yeah, just give me a fifth. I didn't have bricks back then, but there was no such thing as a brick. It was just 5 stripes on your belt. And as you see this belt, yeah, my original, you have Shun Fa, which is way of the fist, in Chinese, right? That's the old Shaolin.
Yep.
And then on this side is my American Kempo. This was my original, training in black belt, so I wear this mostly, but then I have my Kempo belts with the proper 6th and 6th on both sides. A lot of people, Mr. DeBabai always says, you always confuse me. It makes you look like your belt, like with that.
You're a half and half.
He says, it makes you look like you're a Brazilian jiu-jitsu or like some other art. You always confuse me, Donnie. But I always just like, so, you know what? It's just my belt. This is my belt,
It's like, hey, Donnie, what's with the belt, Donnie?
So, no, I was with my 6th, I'd waited. I mean, I'm a big, this is just my hang up. Again, to each their own. First to second, I don't care if I'm instructing or owning a school or not. It's a minimum of 2 years. Second to third, 2 to 3 years, up to 4, third to fourth, 3+ years, fourth to fifth, 4 or 5 years, fifth to sixth, 5, 6 years. It's important to me and I tell my students this as well, marinate, regardless if it took me twice, 15 years from brown to black. Why? Well, you should already be. No, it starts when I get that first stripe. When I get the first Dan around my waist, that's when the timeline starts. And it's still dependent upon what I'm doing. I mean, I just happen to own a school and teach 6 days a week. So that helped. But on the flip side, I still maintained that respect of longevity in regards to how long it takes between those stripes and what it takes for each stripe. And the way I was always brought up from my old training was at fifth and beyond, it's what are you doing for the community? Are you teaching? Do you have black belts? Do you have white belts? Do you currently have at least a few brand new students that you're taking up?
What are you doing for the art?
What are you doing for the art? What are you doing for the community? As far as my students go, they know you're not going to make it past fourth. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm being negative here, but you can make it to fourth here because the art goes up to, the syllabus. And you legitimately as a student, as a civilian, without being an instructor. But past that, you're going to have to be teaching. You're going to have to be doing something for me to justify giving you rank past that. And that's just the way I do things. And even between fifth and sixth, it was a good 6+ years before, I think I got my fifth in 2018. And 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 25. I just got my sixth a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So
we made a requirement that even for the kids, for second brown, you had to write a lesson plan and assist in teaching class. For their first brown, they had to write a lessons plan and teach a class and have someone there. But for their black, they had to do, 10 hours, lessons plans, no one helping, even though you're watching. But then when you're in black, you are teaching. There's no in between. You got to teach because that's where you learn the most.
it sure is. And it is just proof in the pudding in regards to how you move and how you're even able to psychologically, mentally absorb information and make micro changes when an instructor gives you a note. I was just talking yesterday with 2 of my very talented black belts, Carrie Larson and Darren, both teach for me. Carrie teaches regularly for me. She's part of our team. Darren is one of our substitutes, and he's taught regularly a lot over the years. And I was telling them how easy, because our lessons are so fun for me as an instructor, because we take a couple techniques or concepts and we just break them down and work different timing. And I'm always trying to just kind of micromanage their timing, teach them, to explore this, that. And I told him yesterday, I said, you guys, I would give you move it so well. And I can give you just one little note. And unlike other students, you just pass that out. And it's like, you didn't have time to absorb it and you got it. And Carrie looks at us, she goes, I think it's from teaching. And I go, yeah, 100,000%. It's you two black belts are standing out because you've had to break this down, even to a 5-year-old. You had to break short form one down and take your time and articulating it through your words, and which is going to be it's going to be somewhat different than my words.
The
And
doing the syllabus as a student, you're only using the one point of view. So once they start teaching, they're getting all 3 points of view now. So they've got to take themselves out of the doing to observing to feeling to watching to conveying. So you got to know it 10 times better to teach it.
I use the three perspective view of with my students to say, you see it through the eyes of the person doing the concept and the technique, the application. Then you see it through the eyes of being on the other end of it and the dummy and how the body reacts to getting hit. And then you see it through the third perspective, which is the outside eyes of viewing what's happening, but to both sides. And I said, that's how we do drills with our syllabus where, you take, intercepting the ram or whatever, and you say, okay, everybody, groups of 3, one person is going to be observing and discussing what they see. And then you're going to switch off. So you get all 3 perspectives on this technique, and it really works. And that's what teaching does for you. You're getting multiple perspectives, and you're being forced to break it down verbally and also adjust to visual learners versus auditory learners versus a blend. You've got so many different variables there that enhance your skills. But then teaching period, I mean, like when I go to Europe and that's something else I give a lot of thanks to Mr. Angelo Collado for, is inviting me on that trip with his son. The 3 of us had the blast of a lifetime. We did like almost 3.5 weeks of just traveling and just doing Kempo. And that's really where I expanded my European friendship. So I have like Marcel de Jong, one of the best Kempoists I've ever met, and Ernst, I can never say his last name, Stringer, from Netherlands. Those guys are money. I mean, their game and their Kempo is amazing. And they both move different. They're both 2 different styles. But just being exposed to these guys. And again, they always think it's funny when I say, I look at you as a mentor. Well, we're the same grade. You're still a mentor. You're teaching me things, man. Oh, you're teaching me too. Great. So we're all mentors. We're all in this together. We're growing together. But it's funny how also I think you've traveled internationally to know that like German Kempo is slightly different than Netherlands Kempo, is a different vibe than English Kempo, and Irish Kempo.
Okay, Kempo is different in every country to a certain degree, but downhill the same, but it has still the same. It has a dialect.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a current ground language, but I was mentioning Grandmaster Downey. Mr. Downey, I had the honor of teaching aside him and the Burgess brothers.
just
Two,
brothers. Yeah.
yeah, 2 of his students in France. I've made really good friends with this faction in France. They invited me over. They flew me over. They treated me like gold. And I was just the 4 of us taught the seminars. It was for their anniversary of their dojo. And I'd never been on the mats. I've met Mr. Downey through Bob White's events over the years, but we've never shared mat time. And I tell you what, that's another one like Mr. Elliott. I wish I had more time with, and I do plan on going to Ireland and getting some more time with him. But he is a whole nother level and layer of Kempo.
He just looks like a jolly giant, and He could just snap a kick over your head without you even blinking, right?
It's the skills of him. Oh, the skills are insane, and his power is insane. Until you think he's the nicest guy until his fist.
We get along well with the Irish because they like to fight and they like to drink. It's very similar. So
Amen. Yeah, yeah. Those are also two very important parts of Kempo, specifically the drinking part. That's it's the pain killing part. After you train and you bruise, you got to go do something. In Advil and ibuprofen, they don't do it. Good old pints do.
so let me continue on here. Okay. So do you have any? Did you get to you did you get to meet Mr. Parker at all, or did you start after he'd
No,
passed?
I started too late. It was already 2010 when I was exposed to American Kempo, and so no, I was never around it, unfortunately.
Okay. And do you have any memorable moments with your other instructors that you've come through that you can share with us some stories?
Um,
We'll get to the funny ones too. So
Shoot. Uh, you're talking back before American Kempo or just
oh,
general?
general
Y-
before, can be with Mr. Tatum. That's memorable. What tends to happen is we have a discussion and then all these memories come back and stories come forward.
Yeah, I do remember teaching a seminar in England, and Mr. Tatum was the guest, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and being very nervous of teaching in front of him. Now I'm kind of used to it, and I love it because then I get to go up to him afterwards and say, "So, what do you think?" You're looking good, Donnie. Even if I wasn't, he might still say that. But uh, yeah, I remember doing some seminars. One time we were doing a seminar at the Calling, Mr. Abbott's event, and he loves to break down short form three in the multiple attacker mode. And he had me up there, doing the form and then surrounded by Ernst and a few others. And poor Ernst, I still use this as a lesson. I was I had gone into crashing wings and I was loading up for twirling wing. And I load up and he had me freeze. And it's the traditional Mr. Tatum freeze, and he had me doing it. I was the guy doing it, but it was like the person on the other end of it just never knows when the bomb's going to go off. When he's teaching and you're the uke. And other Kempoists do this all the time, but you do shielding hammer and you're the uke and you swing in on him, and the instructor's just freezing like this, and you see this little tremble in the hand, but he's professing something out there to the audience, and then you just don't know when the is going to happen, right? So I loaded up, and he was teaching the different variations of that transition once you finish your crashing wings and you're loading up for that rear shoulder grab attack and twirling wings or choke. uh he's talking about v-stepping, you know keeping in mind there could be a foot there, so making sure you're clearing that foot with a v-step, or just simply blasting through the leg and using this first block as a strike. And that was what came out. And I didn't realize it was going to come out. That was he says, "This time, don't V-step, Donnie. When I say go, go, and don't hold back." Well, I'm thinking it's a block. It's going to hit Ernst's arm. Well, Ernst was closer than I expected, and I was loaded up, and he said, "Go." What? And I heard this, like, it sounded like an open hand slap
Slapping me. Yeah.
chest. And I caught his orbital socket. I swore. I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy's going to have to go to the hospital. I just accidentally broke his orbital." He went down. I mean, went down. And
You sure you didn't say, watch this just before you did it? You're terrible. You're terrible, mate. You're killing me.
no, it was definitely an incidental, situation where I was like, "Oh shit," and everybody, "Oh man." Of course, Mr. Tatum plays it off as, "Well, that works." It works. There's another one I always use in class. I had a student the other day accidentally. We had a little nose break on Wednesday night's class, which in 14 and a half years of being open, that's a rarity. I mean, I can count on my right hand how many, not serious, but these kind of breaking injuries, ribs, fingers, that kind of stuff happen, thankfully. But yeah, we had a little nose break, accidental sparring heel palm. Um, But I always use this as Mr. Pig's favorite thing to say back in the day when he would hit somebody too hard or somebody else would hit somebody too hard. He'd go, oh, it's okay. It wasn't close to the heart. He'll live. He'll live. It wasn't close to the heart. He was teaching um, uh, obscure wing. And so he had this student of his. We were up at the UKF headquarters up north here, and he had this guy grab him, this student, and he just has the power. He doesn't have any range of motion. I mean, just tick. So he ticks, bang, bang. And what he was showing was, instead of the elbow, he's just showing the pivotal point of the elbow. When it hits here, you have lots of different targets from that blind spot of pivot. Just you could have been blind if you know where the xiphoid is, you know where the nose is, you know where the groin is. So he just went. This guy's nose, I've never seen it a nose explode. Just went, just blood, just busted it clean. Wasn't the prettiest guy in the world, and Mr. Pig made sure he mentioned he wasn't pretty anyway. But this guy went down like a sack of rice, down to the ground. Blood everywhere. Of course, everybody rushed around him, picked him up. He's dazed. Pig just kind of stands there. Oops, sorry. Oh, yeah, you'll live. It's not close to the heart. Took him in the bathroom, came back out, taped it up, but it was smashed. It was not a bloody nose. He broke his nose. And I just love when, as an instructor, and I do the same, you accidentally let one go and you just try to play cool so that nobody freaks out at the class. Oh, you're okay. And then you nail somebody down to the ground. Oops. Oh, no, I let go. Grab them, give them a hug. You're okay. You'll live. So
Years ago, I had some students interstate, and we were training in the garage, and I think he invited their seniors down. So this guy joined. I didn't really have an organisation, but he joined me anyway. We were doing something, I don't know what it was, maybe obscure skill clause or something like that. And I've got a bit of weight behind me. I'm not a flyweight, and just came down with the heel palm on the sternum instead of on the bridge of the nose. Anyway, and he turned around to his student who was doing it, and he goes, "Don't ever complain about how hard I hit you."
that's a compliment to me.
Yeah, it was controlled. It was controlled. There wasn't any depth in it, but yeah, it was funny. Yeah,
I remember Mr. Abbott, Damien, one day, he said it a few times now since, but he said, we're having a beer after training, and he goes, you hit, I don't know where it comes from too, because you don't always follow the forward bow like I do. You break your bow. I always break that bow because I'm a small guy and drag up that hip now. And he goes, but I don't know where the power, me and Marcel were talking on the side watching you teach. Your power is amazing. And I go, do I have control? And he goes, less than you think. And I'm like, from you, I've got a guy that hits like a rock and is known for knocking people silly. I go, thank you. Okay. And I said, well, always tell me if I'm hitting you too hard. And he goes, well, I try. I try to give you the look, but you don't seem to ever take the note. I go, well, you're hitting me hard back, man. You know who hits hard? Marcel. Have you ever trained with Marcel Dejean?
I haven't met him. No.
He has control, but he hits you in the same freaking spot every single time. And it's when you're training in repetition, and we love to bang back and forth. I love training with him. Every single time he just loosens up that rib, loosens up that rib, loosens up that rib. And I'm like, okay, you're going to break it. That was 12 times. You're going to break it. It's loose. But there's nothing like the art of Kempo because of the contact.
Yeah, correct. I had I relayed this story a bit, but I had a student of mine. We, when we were with my instructor, we had Speakman coming out, and we were promoting it to other styles to get them to come to the seminar. And this gentleman's got a massive school, and one of my black belts, my first adult black belt, I took him with me because he has a family friend that trains at the other school, and a daughter. So they both have adults and a daughter. He's in Kempo, he's in the other school. And they always get together, and the father always is intrigued by the Kempo. Show me this, show me that, show me, all this stuff anyway. So they don't do a lot of contact as we do, right? And he kept saying that his he was amazed at her because his daughter wasn't of that caliber, like for a street altercation. I said, well, we base it on the street. That's what we're here for. Um, but so we went over there. I said, look, I'll do a teacher class. And then if you think this is good, come to the seminar. Here's to come and meet the master. So as we were driving over there, I was saying to him, look, these guys are not like us. Be respectful, but they don't make a lot of body contact. So you just got to be careful. You don't want to hurt anyone or scare them or whatever. We're there to promote. Anyway, we get there, comes where you get us. You work with a guy, you rip one of the guy's geese with his man handling him. Ragdolled him a bit and ripped his gi. And then the other guy said to him, he goes, how often do you guys do this? He goes, what do you mean? He goes, touch each other. He said, every single class. Every single class.
I'm sorry, man, but it's not Kempo. I've said this many times to people, even some of our shy students who are still getting past the fear. I said, it's not Kempo unless you make some contact. Frictional pull doesn't exist without skin touching skin. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to find yourself some way getting past that fear. You might not be one of the guys on the mats that just blast back and forth and bruise each other every night, but you're going to have to get to a certain place where contact is a thing, or else you're missing majority of the science behind the art. It's not error.
I think one thing our original instructor instilled in us was, you're not going to stop everything. Someone's going to hit you in the mouth and catch you by surprise. So, he wanted you to be to a point, which we do. Someone hits you in the mouth and you go, well, that was good. All right, let's go. Or you go, typical one, good one is you go like this, you just dust it off. And then they go, yeah. The dusting one works well. It's a good psychological one.
Yeah, I totally agree there. Yeah. Angelo Collado always told me that when he was working under Trejo taught them, when they get hit too hard, to react from that. If you get hit, react from that, even if it's your friend. Like, don't ever turn that into a negative and turn it into, it's a trigger. Now it's game on. It's a dangerous way of teaching in a commercial school, because then you end up spending a lot of time breaking people apart. But I do share that a little bit with my students and saying, look, learn to smirk it off, especially because we're all friends here.
Yeah, controlled aggression.
Controlled aggression. Exactly. You've got to control those two things called fear and anger, because the two work hand in hand together in altercations. And if you don't have control, you're going to feel them. But if you don't have control,
I think in the dojo, it comes from a bit of insecurity too. When people haven't worked with certain individuals, they feel intimidated, and then they feel the need, like that individual might have heavy hands, which I've been accused of every now and then. It's all accusations, can't prove anything. But you work with individuals. I went to a school, worked with a black belt at the school. Well, he was really the only person that you could pair me with. We're working together, and I'm just doing techniques, and I can feel, you always gauge people. You put them on a scale, and we're working, and I can feel his scale increasing. So I'm like, okay, I just lift I'm following that scale. He's setting the pace. Anyway, I can hear him now start to feel, is what you would say, start to feel he's not really up to the gauge that he's setting. So I pulled him aside and said, we're heading in a trajectory that's not going to be good. I've got probably another 5 levels to go. I reckon you got 1 or 2 more to go. If you want to head that way, we could do that. I don't think you're going to survive it, but let's just dial it down. We've got nothing to prove. And he calmed right down after that. And so it was sometimes treated as a bit of a pissing match, shall we say, right?
I've seen it. I've broken it up.
Yep.
I've been around it to the point where the ranks were too high for me to even break up, and I was just the audience member in the show. And it's always an interesting outcome. You're talking about how, you got to train students the reality of fighting. You're getting hit. There's no question. If you get in an altercation, you're getting hit. Get hit out here on the mats under safe, in a safe atmosphere where people will protect you, and your safety to a certain degree. Better off feeling it here than it is on the street.
Yeah, that's right.
You've never been hit out there. You already lost the game. But I use, interesting enough, as a white belt, I use attacking mace for that lesson. Because it's not an ideal phase of stepping back and doing an inward block against a right straight step through punch. I think you and I can both agree upon that. It's definitely not ideal. It makes really very little sense other than teaching a student part of the lesson that I use is a fade. You're fading back and out of range of the punch by stepping back away from the punch. But the block I look at is a flinch. And the flinch is, I always tell students, imagine this. You just got popped. Pop. And that's a natural reaction of swatting that fly that just stung, that bee that just stung you. And then your reverb off that right leg, you've got to get back with the counter attack. But we do drills where the heel palm hits the face, you get your first block and then rebound right off the shot. I think that particular you just mentioned about, getting hit and wiping it off, that's a great lesson for me, at least on my mats for white belts. First 10 techniques, you're getting hit, by the way. This is not false sense of security.
I thought you'd be teaching attacking mace because you teach traditional pin-iron forms, right? That's just pure Shotokan technique. That's like, yeah, that's the way I'd teach it.
Any of my old forms in a while. I still know them all. I love knowing them all. I can't half moon worth of shit of me anymore. I can't half moon because it's not in my DNA. I tried it the other day in front of some students. They wanted to see an old kata, and I keep hitting my left neutral bows. I can't hit that left half moon stance anymore.
I had, we did, because we went through 4 systems of Kempo, or 5, I think, in the end. We, like, book set, Tiger and Crane, weird versions of short and long 1 and 2 and all that. That's real, just different stuff, but just different emotion though, right? Yeah, everyone loves book set.
I love it.
I still remember a bit of it, but I get sort of, I got to go back to old videos and watch again.
I got a great video of Damien Abbott presenting it in England back in was August. He just pulled it out of nowhere, and I said, "Dude, you got to teach me that." Jerry Valito taught it to me. He was a Tracy student. He used to be an assistant instructor here. He taught it to me years ago, and I lost it within a week because I didn't practice it.
Yeah.
But I really love it. I love some of that classical stuff, and book sets dynamic. If it's done correctly, it's just a dynamic look.
Book set and Tiger and Crane have similar starts to them, so I think book set was pulled, which they call Panther set, right, in Tracy system. Yeah. So I think I did my second degree in interstate with an organisation we joined, and I was helping him with web stuff, and his reward was to grade me with my instructor's blessing over there. But because I was from another state, they wanted to give me, okay, you want to grade with us? Okay, we'll talk about hazing. This was, but, I come from a rough neighborhood. It's just another day in the park, right? Yeah, like they put you in a circle, 4 guys, close your eyes. They're within hugging and kissing distance. I want you to turn, face the individual, open your eyes, they're going to attack you with anything. One move, that's all you get.
We call that dragon circles. Yep.
Yeah, one move. And then multiple sparring 3 guys.
Yeah, multiple attack. You said this is going to drum up old memories. I haven't thought about this in years. I was doing a movie in Utah called Wish Upon a Star. I was co-starring, Katherine Heigl played my girlfriend, and Danielle Harris played her little sister. It was a Disney film. And I was out there for well over a month. So I brought my gi. I was a brown belt, of course, because I was a brown belt for so many years. I was about 21 years old. And I found the local Shaolin Kempo school in Salt Lake City. So I went in, I called them first, they told me the class schedule, and because I was part of the company, they welcomed me in. They said, train as much as you want around your filming. So the first day I went in, they did that. They took all their brown belts, and these guys all surrounded me, and I had to do that same kind of, it's basically freestyle sparring. That's what it ends up being, because these guys are coming in with multiple attacks. So you're just sparring, and they were proving a point, man. They were hitting me harder than I needed to be hit. Like, I got to go to set. You cannot break my face today. But it's funny how dojos, I don't know how much that is today, but back in the
It's
day.
not today. You wouldn't have a student. I mean, these guys, yeah, the gentleman's school who I was testing at, he had a full-time school, but all the others were just, they were church halls, and it was a bit of a roughneck organization. And these were all the black belts he had. And it was when they put me in the middle and surrounded me, it was, you're only allowed one move, and you can't, you got to stay in the circle.
Oh, wow.
And you have to then close your eyes, turn, next guy, close, turn, one move. That was it. And one of the guys, so I'm getting uppercuts and all sorts of stuff was, you're dealing with it, what with a block. And I turned to one individual. He already had a full power front snap kick loaded on its way as I turned my eyes. The only thing I could do was drop back to cat, into, and just concave my insides, come over the top with an inward overhead elbow right on his shin. And this hematoma came up on his shin. It was like a golf ball. And then after that, they backed right off because they're like, well, I think they'll be worried. Well, it's gonna, if someone was going to get hurt, it was me or them, and they didn't want to.
But you wanted to go the wrong way.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, this is normal, right? This is what normally happens. All right. Okay, let's talk about other aspects of your life that don't involve martial arts. So I know that you're an avid acting career in Hollywood, and you just talked about your Wish Upon a Star role in the movie with Katherine Heigl. That was when she was up and coming, right?
She was up and coming. I think she had, it was a couple years after she did My Father the Hero with Gerard Depardieu or whatever. So she was up and coming, and the Danielle Harris from the Halloween movies, she started, and she's still a good friend of mine. We kept in touch over the years. We knew each other prior to doing that film from child acting. Yeah, that was one of the more successful films, and as far as movies go, I did.
How did you get into acting?
Weird. I'm like I said, I moved here from Edmond, Oklahoma. I moved to Oklahoma when I was in kindergarten from Mississippi. No, from Alabama, Mobile. I was born in Gulfport, Mississippi. And then when I was about a year or so old, they moved to Mobile, Alabama. I lived there until I was in kindergarten. So at about age 5 or so, we moved to Edmond, Oklahoma. It was all my dad's business. It was moving us around. And then I lived there through middle of my third grade year because I moved to California. I remember starting third grade year in February in Irvine. I think I did a play prior to leaving Oklahoma at Oklahoma State College, The Music Man. My sister and mom talked me into auditioning. And so I got a part in it, and I just remember really enjoying the experience and the camaraderie of the cast and all that, and performing. And that was that. And then when I moved to California, I got scouted by the Savage Agency. Judy Savage was one of the bigger agents in children's acting back then. And I can't remember. I was doing some theater, I remember, and I mean, my timeline could be off. It's just been a while, but I was doing some theater, and they scouted me, meaning that they showed up to the performance and contacted my parent, saying, look, we like him. We want to sign him as a child actor. And we knew nothing. My parents are country. They're Southern. They didn't know anything about Hollywood. I know nothing about Hollywood.
They didn't say, we like him. How much for your children?
Basic. But yeah, so Judy took me as a client, and that's how it began. I remember doing a lot of commercials. Like I did like a Hostess pudding cake commercial, and different like toy commercials and Oreo and all that. That was the first few jobs. And I remember one of my first auditions was when the Pippi Longstocking franchise came back. So they were doing The Adventures of Pippi Longstocking. They were casting this nationally. They were looking all over the country for the part of Tommy. And Tommy was the young boy in it. And I remember going to this big cattle call, but because I had an agent, I just had signed with Judy, she was able to get me past the lines. Cattle calls were when you didn't have to have an agent. They saw anybody and everybody. So they would choose like a church in the neighborhood and they would open up their doors Saturday and Sunday, and the line would go a mile long down the road, and it was like a conveyor belt. They just saw kids, and if they made the cut, they'd keep a kid to the next level and then make another cut, and eventually they would make their way through um, the lower end of the casting directors to the actual casting directors and the producers and director of the show. I ended up skipping some of those because I had the agent that pushed me through with connections, and I went straight in, and I made it all the way to the end of the point where I booked the part. I got the call saying, "You're going to play Tommy in the new Pippi Longstocking movie." So that was like, oh my God, this is it. Wow. I mean, that was quick. Problem was they lost funding or something happened where the movie got put on hold. And I was about 10, 11, maybe 11 at the time. And I remember forgetting about it. There had been at least 2 or 3 years since I did the initial meeting with the directors and met everybody and was told, we're going to put you into wardrobe soon, and, we'll have the shooting schedule. And then, of course, it all fell apart. A few years later, and one morning before school, we got a call from my agent, and she was like, told my mom, it's back on, but they need to see him because they're afraid that he's outgrown the role because it's been so long. And so they met with me, and sure enough, they were like, yeah, you're not right anymore. You changed physically. I started puberty and all that. So that role was taken from me. But soon after that, I started doing the guest stars on Punky Brewster, who's the boss, Cagney and Lacey. I did a lot. I played Oliver North's son in the Oliver North story.
So how old were you in Cagney and Lacey? That's an old show.
Oh, I was like 12, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, like cameos and stuff, or?
It was all guest stars. That episode was about my dad abusing my mom, and me being the child. I ran and found either Cagney or Lacey, and they were my neighbors, and they got involved. And I did uh, uh, Touched by an Angel. I did a little arc, a guest star, reoccurring role on Seventh Heaven. But from 1989, my freshman year in high school, to 1993, I did 70 something episodes of a kids game show on Nickelodeon called Wild and Crazy Kids. And that was with Omar Gooding, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s brother, and another girl named Jessica Gaines and Annette Chavez. So we hosted that show all throughout my high school career. And so that was my steady job throughout those years. But I would do guest stars here and there and movies when they came up during my contract with Nickelodeon. Once I got off that show, they took me in my senior year of high school. I graduated in 93. They took me on a live version of the tour. So they basically took me all over the country with the live show. And then we went to, pretty much all the states in America. And then the Sultan of Brunei, his 4-year-old niece, I guess, wanted Nickelodeon for her birthday. And so he flew us out, and I did the live show for the Sultan. The royalty of Europe everybody was there. It's a weird experience. Yeah, that's my career. And then I think in 97, I booked One Life to Live in New York. That flew me to New York, and I moved there. I was 22 years old.
Was that a series or a movie?
It was a soap opera on ABC. And so I did that for a few years. I told you that I went out to Australia during those years in my early 20s, guest starred in the old series Flipper.
Good old Flipper, eh? He didn't get a Guernsey and a Skippy.
It's the Jessica Alba was starring in that back then, and that was a great experience. I remember.
So that was Flipper the movie, was it? The remake, not the original.
It wasn't the movie; it was a series.
Okay, yeah, because Flipper was a series. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, they did the movie, but this was actually the revamp of the series. So I guest starred on that. They flew me down there for a couple of weeks.
And that was
So it was a big career, man.
that would have been when Jessica Alba was young, right?
Yeah, she was 15, I think. I remember having lunch with her. I was 21, and she
Yeah.
sat with at lunch, and I remember her telling me, my manager, this I swear to you, I'm not lying. She was saying, "Babe, my manager's told me that this is just a launching pad. I'm going to be famous." And she just told me all this stuff. She was lined up, and I'm sitting there as a working actor for so many years. I'm going, "Oh yeah, this is a very inspired young lady. She's on Flipper in Australia. I mean, we'll see if she, you know." And sure enough, man, within a couple of years, boom, she exploded, and she had it right on, man. She was not lying. So that was interesting experience. But yeah, man, I enjoyed those times, and it's
Well, what would be the what would be the pinnacle of the movies you've been in?
movies wise, success wise would be Wish Upon a Star, because they got that movie was an independent film that got bought by Disney, and um, I had a really good contract in that film, which had a percentage on the back end, which means if they sold it past what they were going to just use it for independently, I got a percentage of whatever their sales were. And I remember being shocked at how much income I made from that movie that I thought was just going to kind of go, come and go, and that was it. And it ended up going on to reruns for years on Disney Channel. And so all of those reruns and all those, that sell to Disney, we got a big cut of, and it was a good solid chunk of money. But as far as experience goes, I've enjoyed I mean, I loved playing opposite Gary Sinise,
Sanish, yeah.
in CSI. I played a bad cop in that. It was
So is that just a cameo, or was that did you play
guest star.
just star?
Guest
Yeah,
star.
yeah. So has most of your stuff been guest star, or have you, been
I've
that?
had regular series, recurring, they call reoccurring roles. Like on Seventh Heaven, I played Michael Towner, which was, I think I did 4 episodes or so of that, maybe a couple seasons, of that as the same character.
Seven Heavens was the show with the angel, right? What was that?
No, it was the show about the pastor's family.
Yeah,
Jessica Biel was in it.
yeah.
In fact, I played Jessica Biel's first. I was her enemy, it's the bully of the school, and then I guess I found God, and the next season they put me back. I was her boyfriend for a little bit, but yeah, it was all great years, man. Some of my most memorable experiences were like I did a Western when I was a kid. It was the first couple of years I was in the industry. I was like 10, 11 years old. James Arnaz and Bruce Boxleitner. It was called Red River. It was the remake of the classic John Wayne movie, black and white movie, Red River. And we filmed that in Arizona. So I love doing Westerns. And then I did Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman in my 20s. I played Jim Younger, part of the Jesse James Gang. And riding horses and dressing up like that was always a lot of fun. So, yeah.
What would have you got any memorable moments from your acting career, or any funny stories you can share with us, or any famous people that you've met?
Oh man, where to start? I mean, when I was down in Australia, I played, my character's name was Donnie, which is rather unique. But I was the bad guy of the episode, and I was basically a spoiled son of this really rich millionaire. And against my father or whatever, I decided to take this big pirate ship and turn it into a pirate radio rock ship. So we were, with me and my crew on this big yacht pirate ship, we were sailing along the coast and stealing the radio frequency from radio stations to produce our own pirate rock and roll station. And they found that it was doing damage to the dolphin population or something. And I didn't want to give up. And I was this manipulative character, what have you. So fun character to play, kind of cheesy, but fun. And when I was down there, we were out of this country, so the laws weren't the same. And I tell you what, I almost drowned. The end of the episode, they end up destroying like blowing the ship up, my ship, and there's this whole build up to this big, explosion. And when it explodes, my character dives off the top of the pirate ship into the ocean, along with the other bad guy. And so they put us in these wetsuits, and it was summertime in America, so it was around your winter time out there. And it was the Gold Coast, like you said, we were talking before. It was still not freezing, but the water was freezing. So they put us in these wetsuits that weren't even the correct fit. I remember it just being giant. I'm like, this isn't going to do anything. Then they put our costumes over the wetsuits, and they asked me, Donnie, since you've, martial artist, you did, I told you I did, like when I did the CSI, I had a fight scene, and I did my own fight scene because of my training.
Fighting is different from swimming in full clothes, mate.
I was far more comfortable with that. But I always like to do my own stunts because the cameramen always appreciate that. You can get a better shot and so on. So the director said, Donnie, are you comfortable with this? You're a good swimmer. Yeah, I can do it. And it was a big jump. It was a big dive off. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So me and the other guy who was older than me, he decided he would do it as well. He was not as good of a swimmer as he told everybody. Because basically we both jumped in. We were totally weighed down by our shoes. It was much more cold than we expected. And we're supposed to be acting as though we're fighting each other in the water, pissed off, struggling. This guy kept grabbing a hold of using me as a flotation device because we were
trying to drown you.
Yeah, man. There was a helicopter that had a camera in it, and then another boat alongside us that was filming us. And the director was on this loudspeaker going, Donnie, fight him. You guys, come on, keep going, It was already shocking. The wetsuit was doing absolutely nothing. We were weighed down by our clothes. We're flailing. This guy just kept trying to, and the director says, yeah, good, duck him again. And I'm like, I'm going to freaking die. This is it. I'm going to die doing flipper in Australia. Finally they got us out of the water, and I was pissed. I was like, bro, you just about killed me, man. And the director was like, oh, it's a great shot. That was really good stuff. So, the adventures of acting, I guess, so.
I'm your host, Peter Taz, and you've tuned in to the Mind Sensei podcast from Down Under. We want to take a moment to thank all our listeners for tuning in to the Mind Sensei podcast. We appreciate your support and hope our show has been both informative and entertaining for you. If you haven't already done so, we would like to invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Finally, we'd like to thank our guests for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. Without their generosity, this podcast would not be possible. Thank you again for listening to the Mind Sensei podcast Down Under. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey through the world of martial arts.